Thank you, everybody, and welcome to joining us here on Friday afternoon. We are doing this entirely too late, and I am sorry, but we have somebody to blame for this, for a delinquent version of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. Our fearless producer, Candy Bolden, did her civic duty this week by doing jury duty. And I'm going to tell you this right now, that probably was more interesting than the episode that we're going to do here right now. And critics have said this episode is expected to be nominated for an Emmy, a Tony, and a Academy Award. Candy, can you hear us, Candy?
Yes, I can hear you.
Were you picked for jury duty?
No, the case got resolved right after we checked in.
That's too bad. So did you get your money? Did you get your $5?
Yeah, I got my $20.
$20? It's up to $20? Holy, what'd you do with the money?
I went for breakfast.
There we go. Didn't give it back. I like it. Say that, Nick?
Hard earned.
Hard-earned $20. All right. Thank you very much for Window Nation for sponsoring this episode of Cowboys Overtime. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist. A good-looking gentleman on the other side of your screen is Mr. Nick Harris. He likes to go by Sir or Mr. Nick, you had a very busy and exciting, action-packed week at the Star in Frisco. And I could lie to good people who are watching this now, but I'm not going to because I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence. I wrote down the topics, I think, of what we were going to do here today on Cowboys Overtime. I can't find them.
That sounds about right.
I can't. Honestly, God, it's the first time it's ever happened, and I'm like, I always wrote it down, and I'm like, where the hell did I write it? So Candy, I gave you there we go. Thank you very much, Candy. Cowboys reached 500 with a thrilling win in New York last Thursday night against a bad Giants team. However, everybody on the active 53 roster is hurt as a result of that game. Cowboys reached 500 against a bad Giants team. Nick, was it worth it considering all the injuries that came out of that game?
Yeah, I mean, a win is a win, but yeah, definitely. You look at the injuries that resided on both sides of the ball. You could start with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, not only losing your two best pass rushers for the upcoming weeks, but you're also looking at having to replace those guys with rookies or inexperienced guys. And then you look at Brandon Cooks, who was not injured in the game, but he stayed behind in New York, had an injection done on his knee over the weekend, and then it ended up being an infection in that injection. It wasn't done correctly. And, those things do happen. It is part of the process of those injections, but it's just the hits keep on coming. The injury bug has struck Dallas. I think if maybe you're looking for some positives, at least it struck it early in the season. We'll see if it ends up actually happening throughout the course of the year. But these guys, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, are expected to be back. Deron Bland, remember him? He is supposed to be back at some point this year. I think the only thing that you could kind of look at is this bye week in a couple of weeks. They might be limping towards that bye week from a health standpoint. But you still look at the guys that you have available. There is still an opportunity to have some success against Pittsburgh.
There we go. Nick, you froze up on me. Can you try it again? The very end. It was really good.
Yeah, I think there. You look at the guys that are still there. There is still optimism going into this week against Pittsburgh.
Okay, let's talk about that Giants game just for a minute. I know it's been a minute since they played that game. It feels like a month ago. But there were some parts to that game, and I know it was kind of close. There were some parts to that game that made me feel better about this team, certainly than a couple of weeks ago when they got their rear ends kicked by the Saints, and obviously better than when they, got emasculated for the first 3.5 quarters against Baltimore. I know the Giants aren't very good, and everything has to be couched with that. But Dak Prescott is playing really well because his receivers, other than maybe 1.5 guys, aren't giving him a lot to work with. That to me is definitely a positive, as that was his best game by far.
Yeah, looking at Dak Prescott, he was asked yesterday. It's like, hey, do you feel like you kind of have to take another step here with all these guys out? Do you feel like you have to kind of compensate for these guys being out? And he said he feels like he is on the brink of playing his best football. He said he was, quote, damn sure about it coming here soon. So, I mean, whatever that looks like, it's going to have to come to fruition. you look at the offensive side just in general, they are going to have to compensate for a defensive side that is having injury problems at all three levels. I mean, you look at the secondary, Kalen Carson, the shoulder injury that forced him to miss the game against the Giants last Thursday. There's still some pessimism about him playing on Sunday. So you might be turning back to practice squad cornerback Amani Oruwariye again to opposite of Trayvon Diggs. And then Trayvon Diggs, you talk about him. He suffered an ankle injury in practice on Thursday. It was a scare initially to everybody when it happened, but as they went through testing and as the last 24 hours have shown, it looks like he's going to play on Sunday, so the scare was just that. But nevertheless, you're dealing with injuries at all three levels on the defensive side. So on the offensive side, you're going to have to be able to compensate for that. What does that look like? An efficient pass game for a run game that does not exist. And
Okay, hang on. Wait, time out, Nick. You blacked out on me, and I was a little worried that you were like everybody else at the Star, and that you either got sick, hurt, maybe your foot got run over by a car. You blacked out on us after you were talking about Trayvon Diggs, his injury not being as worse as feared. How are you feeling?
About the Trayvon Diggs?
No. Just your health in general, because everybody around the team is getting hurt.
I'm doing all right. I jammed my finger playing some basketball a couple of nights ago. I will. It's a little purple there. I don't know if you could see it, but
let's see. My screen's over here, so let me see it. How bad is it? Not the middle
finger.
finger.
Full on the injury report. I'm still full practice participant.
Full practice. Speaking of basketball, where are you on the scale of terrible white guy rec league basketball players? Are you a full, awful white guy, hustle guy, or can you actually play a little bit?
I played in high school for a team that wanted to shoot more three-pointers than anybody in the country. Literally, year we set the national record for three-pointers made. So I can shoot sometimes. You got to catch me on a good day, but I'm more of the distributor. I'm getting other guys involved.
I'm the towel guy at the end of the bench. You know what I mean? This is what I've liked in my basketball career too. I am basically the Make-A-Wish kid that they put on the floor, and everybody, takes about 10 feet away. And if I happen to hit a layup, everybody just goes bananas. And they put me on their shoulders like at the end of Rudy. That's more or less what happens when I score in a pickup game. But I'll tell you this: I've never seen a shot I couldn't make. You know what I mean? Or pardon me, I've never seen a shot I couldn't miss. I totally screwed up that joke. Okay, Candy, what's the next topic we've got here on this one? There we go. Cowboys move ahead without major defensive stars. Okay, you knocked the head off this one. This is whole. He's got a serious foot injury, and now he's going to be out for a good chunk of the season. Now they're going to be without Micah Parsons for a little while because of a high ankle sprain. They were both on scooters coming out of New York. And I got to tell you, there is a part of me that would be intrigued to see one or both of them play on scooters. Any chance, Nick, we might see Micah Parsons on a scooter there in Pittsburgh on Sunday night?
I don't think he's going to be on the travel party, but he has been on a scooter.
He's not even going?
He won't be on the travel party, but he will be on the he was on the scooter this week in the locker room, and he was even open to talking about the scooter experience. He's never missed a game in his entire football career. Can you believe that?
Amazing. No.
And he's lining up to not play on Sunday. It'll be the first time in his career. I think talking to people this week, though, it sounds like definitely not this week. Next week looking a little doubtful, but there's optimism that he'll be able to return after the bye week against San Francisco, and they'll really need him in that game.
What about Tank? I mean, they obviously drafted a guy a little bit out of schedule in Marshawn Nealon, the rookie out of Boise State, who looks like he's going to be pretty good, and it looks like he was drafted to replace. Was he out of Boise? Did I get that school right, Nick?
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan. Sorry, I confused. Western Michigan. Tank's the Boise guy. So they drafted this guy pretty ostensibly to develop and eventually be Tank's replacement. He's going to play now. What are your thoughts about Tank's long-term prognosis here for 2024?
Yeah, it's sounding like more of a 6-week type injury. They put him on the injured reserve, so he has to stay out for at least 4 weeks. But I think we could be looking at a reality where it's probably after Thanksgiving is when we start looking up to see when Tank could be back. I think this is going to be one that they are going to be cautious with and not try to rush him back onto the field too soon. They know that they're going to need him for the long run and when December comes around.
I got to tell you, you saying that is pretty depressing. And I say that, and I don't say that tongue in cheek. I say that because you've spent more time with him than I have. I like the guy a lot. He's not without his personality quirks, but I think he's been a hell of a good pro for this team for a long time and really, really undervalued and league wide. Are we looking at the final year of his career here, you think? I think so.
Yeah, I think if you factor in Marshawn Nealon being drafted last, if he's able to use this time as the incumbent starter in place of DeMarcus Lawrence, and he's able to show that, hey, I can be a guy you can trust week in and week out, then, where does the Cowboys need for DeMarcus Lawrence kind of come on the back end? If these injuries are going to be something that happens towards these later stages of his career, are they comfortable with letting him go to a different place to see that out? They made that decision with Tyron Smith, and now he's up in New York. And I think a similar decision could be made when you look at the DeMarcus Lawrence case. I don't think DeMarcus Lawrence is done playing football after this year, but I'm starting to see a reality where he's not wearing the star next year.
Okay, we do want to talk about one guy before we go to break here, and that is a guy that, even before you came on, had been basically a piñata since I would guess about the middle of last season when he was a rookie, and I'm talking about defensive tackle Mazi Smith. Mazi hadn't been very good as a rookie, and in the first couple of games when the Cowboys' run defense was about as bad as a run defense could be. I remember there against the Saints, you came off the bench, ran 3 times for 78 yards and a score. And you've still got it, you know what I mean? But still, you don't expect a guy coming out of the press box to run all up and down an NFL defense, and you were that good.
Yeah.
All stupid jokes aside, we've been killing Mazi Smith because of what he isn't. And then the Cowboys defense. Now, I realize they're not playing against Walter Payton or Eric Dickerson. The Cowboys defense goes out and absolutely shuts down the Giants' running game and holds them to an NFL season low rushing total for any NFL team. And it was largely because of Mazi Smith. He was outstanding, Nick. I went back and I watched the game and I'm like, who is this guy? I mean, he was everywhere, dominating and blowing up plays from beginning to end. I know it's one game and you don't want to get ahead of yourself, especially when so much of the tape was not good. But Nick, that guy and that performance that night said to me, maybe they've got something here and they can salvage this. And Mike Zimmer has a real asset and weapon to deal with. Am I completely on drugs?
He played like a first-round pick for the first time in his career, and it was very evident from the very beginning that he came to put a can of whoop butt out there against the Giants. I think if you look at the Giants' interior offensive line and you kind of factor that in with the performance that Mazi had, on paper, was Mazi supposed to have a game like that? Maybe not a game or a performance to that level, but he was supposed to shine, and he did just that and a little bit more. I think for him, though, it's about the confidence that he built over the course of these last 10 days, because I think the long rest period not only helps, gets these guys back into better health, but you can take confidence from those 10 days into Pittsburgh this weekend. And against a Pittsburgh offensive team that rushes more than anybody in the NFL, they have more rushing attempts than anybody in the NFL. I don't know why a thumbs up just popped up there, but it was a good point, maybe. But nevertheless, I think there was an opportunity for him in that game to stack some confidence, and he did just that. He did it in the first half, and then it was like, okay, can this carry over to the second half? And in the very first play of the third quarter, he breaks into the to the offensive backfield, a tackle for loss for 3 yards. He was resetting the line of scrimmage, clogging running lanes. He did just about everything you wanted him to do coming out of that game.
Last question before we go to break. We talked about the replacement for Tank Lawrence. We didn't talk about the replacement for Micah Parsons. And I know there is no replacement for a natural God-given talent like that. But somebody's got to step up on the depth chart. Who is it?
Chauncey Golston, fourth-year guy out of Iowa. He was drafted in the same draft class as Micah Parsons. He was drafted a couple of rounds later. They've used him on the end. They've used him inside. He's played everywhere from 3-tech inside to the wide 9. I think now you'll start to see him more on that wide 9 type front. But you're going to have 2 edge guys that are over 265 pounds, so they're going to bring a lot of power off that edge.
All right. Speaking of power, Window Nation, let's hear from them now.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you, Window Nation, very much for your loyalty and commitment to here, StarTelegram.com's Cowboys Overtime. I'm Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel. I actually look better in person. So does Nick Harris, our Cowboys beat writer, who is getting ready to catch a plane on his way to beautiful Pittsburgh. Lovely this time of year. All right, Candy, help us out. Candy says I'm freezing up a bit. I don't need to hear that from you. Just my personality. I'm really cold. A lot of people have told me I'm frozen. Dak Prescott has wide receiver issues. CeeDee Lamb is the highest paid employee in the state of America, making $78 million a minute, something like that. I screwed that up. Jake Ferguson has proven to be, when he's healthy, really nice target. Brother, Nick, give me some good news as Brandon Cooks now can sue his doctor for screwing up a shot. Who does Dak Prescott have to throw to that can be considered, I don't know, kind of a threat in this offense?
I don't know if I have good news for you, Mac, but I can give you maybe one point of optimism.
All right, here we go.
I'm going to give you context for 2 off seasons ago. So the off season of 2023 going into the 2023 season, Dak Prescott put a really big intention on working with CeeDee Lamb. Every single day, those two were linking up together. They were trying to build that connection, build that rhythm. And what did it turn into? It turned into the best season for a receiver in Dallas Cowboys history in 2023 from CeeDee Lamb. You could definitely see that those two took the next step in that connection. Here in 2024, CeeDee Lamb was not here during the offseason. He wasn't around these guys because of his contractual holdout. Naturally, Dak turns to another receiver to build that connection to. He built that connection with Jalen Tolbert. And I think you've seen the next step between those two guys kind of translate as the season has gone on. He's 3rd on the team in receiving. He's only 1 yard shy of being 2nd on the team in receiving behind Jake Ferguson. They've relied on him in some key moments here so far in this season. But the question is, now that he needs to step up and be the number 2 guy for the first time in his career, can he take on that chair? Can he take some of the pressure off of CeeDee Lamb? Because if you look at it from the Steelers' perspective, it's like, we were already going to put 2 guys on CeeDee Lamb. You're taking Brandon Cooks out of the equation. We may as well put the whole secondary on the guy. So Jalen Tolbert's going to have to come out early and often and be able to show, like, hey, you got to pay some respect to this side of the field as well. Take some pressure off number 88, and it might be able to open up the passing game as the game goes on. But it's going to be really, really important for Jalen Tolbert to have a good game on Sunday night.
Who else? Brandon Cook. We talked about Brandon Cooks. You've mentioned it. There have been times when, and he's an older guy, and they were going to have to rely on him. And he's not a huge guy, but there have been times where you watch him, and you're like, that looks like an older guy who's an older guy. Well, he's not even a part of the equation now. Tolbert is a guy who I really admire his professionalism through all of this. I've seen other guys come through here and fight, and the fight beats him. And Tolbert, to his credit, has not been defeated. And he's improved, and I give him a lot of credit with that because that's not easy. It's real easy to blame everybody else and get down on yourself, and if the coaches don't like me and I need to get out of here. Jalen Tolbert didn't do any of that. So we've named one, we've named the other. There's a third. There's got to be a contender someplace in there. Who is the Noah Brown type that maybe could develop and do something and give this offense? You're not talking about just some plays that are positive and a reason that the defense doesn't have to send 10 guys at CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, well, I'll run through the rest of the receiver depth chart that will be used. Kevontae Turpin, we saw him have a touchdown grab a couple of weeks ago. That was in a key moment in the 4th quarter as the Cowboys were trying to come back against the Ravens. He's been trusted a little bit more with the offense with every game that goes by in his career. He's also in a contract year, so this could be a big opportunity for him to be able to show some value aside from the return game where we've gotten used to seeing him quite a bit. And then you look at Jalen Brooks. He had that slip up against the Ravens that led to the interception, or excuse me, that was against the Saints that led to the reception. And, since then, Dak has gone back to him, and Jalen Brooks has been sure-handed. How much trust is actually there, I think that will be shown on Sunday. And then you look at Ryan Flanoy, the rookie 6th-round pick out of Southeast Missouri State. Yes, that is a real school, Mac. He's a big guy. He's a guy you can kind of throw it up to on the sideline, and he can kind of work his body around a defender and be able to bring it down. If they're looking for a possession-type receiver, maybe that's a situation where they draw him up schematically in a one-on-one situation in the red zone. But nevertheless, he'll be making his NFL debut on Sunday in the absence of Brandon Cooks.
So last thing I want to ask you about this topic, and then we'll move on, is we obviously live now in a very over-statisfied world of sports. All of them. There's just a statistic for everything. And I think it's sometimes a little much, but there are sometimes you can look at it and say, that one applies. And the numbers that I see, and visually it's not good, and the numbers are even worse, is that the Cowboys receivers as a whole give Dak Prescott a smaller target than any other quarterback in the NFL because they're not getting any separation. And when you watch it at the game, you really have to be at the game to see it because the television angle isn't big enough. And you can see sometimes this guy's got, and I mean, talking Dak, this guy's got no room to throw. There's no place to throw the ball. And if you do, you're putting it in harm's way. And to Dak's credit, he's making a lot out of very, very tight windows. I hope people who are watching this now listen to what I'm about to say. This young man here, Nick Harris, follows and knows a lot about football and the specifics of it, not just the headlines. So when you see some of those statistics, and when I sit here and talk to you about anecdotally what I see are these very, very tight flea-sized windows for Dak Prescott to fit in those passes to his receivers, are they as bad as I'm making them out to be?
Yeah, I think so. You look at the separation that these receivers have created; it's ranked amongst the worst in the league. And I think whenever you look at it from a holistic view, since it's the whole receiving core that is having these issues, you got to look at the scheme. You got to look at the scheme issues that are causing this to happen. I mean, granted, you could look at CeeDee Lamb's case. More often than not, he's had two guys on him, and he had a single coverage opportunity against the Giants, and they made them pay with a 55-yard touchdown. He didn't see single coverage the rest of the night. You look at Brandon Cooks. He's been dealing with a knee issue going all the way back to training camp. If you're thinking about creating separation, you need two really well-working knees. You look at Kevontae Turpin's case, he doesn't have much of a route tree. It's mainly just, hey, go run, and we'll try to get the ball to you as you're running a million miles an hour.
Well, time out, Nick. I want to ask you a question about Turpin. When you've got a guy that small, how many routes really can you give him?
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because you look at the physicality that he's going to have to be able to run with these certain type of routes that are asked of him in this scheme. He can really only run about two of them. He can run a slant, dig, and that's about all he can do because he can't line him up on the outside because he's going to get blown off by a bigger corner. So it's not like he can just run a straight go because he'll get knocked off the line by a safety. So it is difficult. It's difficult to find an opportunity for Turpin to be able to find some consistency.
You wouldn't do that with him. Hang on, I want to challenge you a little bit because we've seen smaller guys, and I realize I'm gonna bring up two guys that are special elite guys.
Yeah.
But they weren't big. Steve Smith was not a big man, but he could run a go route on you. T.Y. Hilton was not a big guy, and he could run a go route on you. Does Kevontae just not have that skill set?
Yeah, and I'll even add Tyreek Hill to that list.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, yeah.
Difference with these three guys is they have a really developed release package as well. And Turpin just does not release off the line particularly well. You saw he had an abbreviated career at TCU after getting into some trouble off the field. Then it kind of takes him a while.
Called some trouble?
Something like that. It gets into the USFL and mainly used as a return guy, but then also the offense mainly as a guy that they just got the ball to out in space. It wasn't really that he was asked to do a whole lot in the route running game. But nevertheless, his route bag and his tool bag is just a little bit less developed than what you would see from some of these other smaller, shiftier guys in the NFL at the receiver.
So basically, if we're going to look at this, you're looking at Tolbert developing. I don't know, this rookie Florida thing, it's a lot to ask of a rookie 6th round pick. But you're looking at Jake Ferguson, maybe Schoonmaker. He's shown some flashes here and there. I do see signs of a guy of a tight end who's just getting dominated too much. But basically, if this is going to happen, this has got to be Jalen Tolbert taking a step and doing kind of what Michael Gallup did when Mike was in his second year, and he started to show some signs. He was going to be a good player before he got that bad injury. He was showing some signs that he could play. Is that a good, decent comp, Nick?
Yeah, I think from a career progression standpoint, yes, but maybe not from a play style standpoint. I think Tolbert actually can do a little bit more. I think he has some flexibility in the slot. I think you can also line him up outside. You can do a little bit more of those things. You can ask him to be the possession guy. You can also ask him to be the separation guy. I think Tolbert does have a lot of things in his tool bag. They just need to be developed so that he can kind of get to that next level. I think his ceiling is high. I do. I think he can be a wide receiver 2 in this offense. And if you look at Brandon Cook's contract situation, he's also on an expiring contract. You look at the room, you'd have to hope, if you're the coaching staff, that you can develop Tolbert to be that wide receiver 2 going into 2025. This is going to be a really good opportunity for him to do that these next couple of weeks.
Brandon Cooks is not coming back. All right, Candy, what's our last one? This should be the last one. Prediction time. Here we go. Thank God. Because I know you got a place to go. Okay, Sunday Night Football. Cowboys, Steelers, old school NFL classic franchise matchup. Staubach, Harris, Bradshaw, Swan, Pearson, Dorsett, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry. None of them will be there on Sunday night. However, Dak Prescott will be playing former first-round pick Justin Fields, who has resurrected his very short career in Pittsburgh after being traded from Chicago, where they gave up on him right away. He has the Steelers at 3-1. Personally, I'd like to see Russell Wilson play, but I don't think he's going to. Big problem for me in this game, and a game that the Steelers are favored by 2.5. Running back, you mentioned it. The Steelers run the ball more than any other team. Najee, how do you pronounce his name? Najee Harris?
Najee, yeah.
Got it. He scares the hell out of me for the Cowboys. And if they're going to do this, they have got to get to him early to knock them off their running game. And if they do that, and if they make Justin Fields throw into a thrower, I think they got a shot to win this. But that is their only shot, and I think we will know that in the first quarter. I'm going to pick the Steelers to win this game by 3, but I'm not just saying the Cowboys are dead, because I think they can play with them, but I think the home field is ultimately going to be why Pittsburgh wins this game. What about you?
Yeah, I picked something different on a podcast this morning, but as I've had more conversations as this day's gone on, and I've looked at the weather and what this game might be trending towards, it looks like a thunderstormy type rainy, dreary game at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday night. I think the Steelers take this one, and I think they cover.
All right. Well, we both missed last week because Brandon Aubrey hit a long field goal to cover the 4.5-point spread. And I think you and I both thought they would win, but they wouldn't cover. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was curious. Did we close at 4.5? Because the game closed at 5.5, but did we close at 4.5?
I think we closed at 4.5. I'll have to go back and watch, which is kind of like a torture session anyways. I've been horrible on this. And anybody wants to pick, if anybody's picking games based on my picks, listen to what I say and then do the opposite. Listen to Nick, and your batting averages, you have a decent chance. All right, I know you're busy. I know you've got a plane to catch. Please fly safe. Have a great time in Pittsburgh. It's a beautiful city. You might see Batman there. That's where it was shot. Yeah. I want to thank Window Nation. Thank you very much, Nick, for doing this. Candy, I'm sorry you had to do jury duty, but you did collect $20. We expect to see our cut eventually for all of your Cowboys coverage needs, especially from Sunday night there in beautiful Pittsburgh. Be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. He's Nick Harris. I'm Mac Engel. I'll get it right next week. Thank you, Window Nation. See you next week.